Gather round, let the stories unfold from the pages of old where the brave hearts are told. Women of wisdom, fire in their eyes, rising up high, ready to claim the skies. We're shining bright like a beacon of grace, echoes of faith in this timeless space. From Esther to Mary, the strength we embrace. 21st century woman, let's run this race.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are streaming from. Welcome to another episode of Women of the Bible, Women for Global Impact. I'm your host, Elder Joan T. Randall. I'm the founder of Victorious Youth Press. I'm also the Women's Ministry Director at I Believe God Ministries International, and I look forward to coming to you every week to talk about women of the Bible. We have covered about 150 women of the 160 women mentioned either by name or no name in the Bible. And it's an incredible opportunity to be able to come before you every week and talk about a woman whose existence was a long, long time ago, but the impact of her life as it is recorded in the Bible still lives today. And there's so many lessons we can learn from those women. So let's get right into it. For the first quarter of this year, we have been talking about silent sisters of service, silent sisters of service. And so we are in week 7 of silent silent sisters of service. And today I have the distinguished honor of talking about this woman who was never given a name, but what she did went down in history, and we still talk about her today. So welcome, welcome, welcome as you are joining in. We're excited to have you. And if you are watching the replay, welcome replay viewers. We would like for you to subscribe, like our channel, click on the notification bell. So every time we go live, you get an opportunity to be notified so that you know we are here. And right before I get into this, I want to invite you to our upcoming masterclass that we're having on March the 28th, where we're going to invite you, women, men, the people of I Believe God Ministry, all of our members, to join me on Saturday, March 28th, as we do a masterclass in all of these women that we have discussed over the first quarter. I want to hear from you. Who is your favorite woman of the Bible in the topics that we have discussed over the first quarter? And I want to hear what you liked about her and what resonated with you. And if one of your favorite women was not covered, we can talk about that too. So love to hear from you. March 28th, more information will be forthcoming, but stay tuned to these channels so you'll get more of that update. All right, let's get into this conversation today about the wise woman of Abel Beth Makkah. The wise woman of Abel Beth Makkah. All right, so you can find the story about this incredible woman, this wise woman, in 2 Samuel 20, verses 14 through 22. However, to understand it a little bit better, you may have to go and read all of 2 Samuel 20. You may even want to go and read 2 Samuel 19, because there is a there's a context prior to us getting to this place, right? So you may want to be able to read that to just get a broader perspective of this woman and what she did and how profound what she did was. So let's get into a little bit of the story. So I'm going to give you a background. There was this political climate, right, that was brewing then. And this takes place near the end of King David's reign. and he had a son named Absalom. Now, he had this tiff with his father. His father loved him, but he had this tiff against his dad, right? And so he rebelled against his father and ultimately, in the end, was killed, right? And so his rebellion had just been crushed, right? And so the nation at this time was extremely fragile. The people were divided. There were tribal tensions between Judah and the northern tribes, and there was just this fight, this incredible unrest. And so here comes this guy whose name is Sheba. He's a Benjamite, and he wanted to exploit the division between Judah and the northern tribes. And so he did that because he wanted to rule. He wanted to take over. He wanted to become king, right? But David was still alive. So how are you going to try and become king while King David is still alive? So he declares a revolt, right? His goal was to take out King David's rulership and take over. So when all of this became knowledgeable to King David, he sent one of his seasoned and ruthless military commander named Joab, Joab, to eliminate the threat, right? To eliminate the threat. And so Joab got to the city and decided to besiege the city. And his goal was to completely tear that wall down, get into that city to find this man. But he was going to do it at whatever cost, that even if it meant other lives, right? And so the city is moments away from annihilation. So let's just talk about where the city was. So Abel Beth Makkah was in the northern region of Israel, and it's near the region of Dan, within the territory of Naphtali. So geographically, this woman, the wise woman of Abel Beth Makkah, that we're going to be talking about today, was most likely associated with one of those tribes, mainly the tribe of Naphtali. And the reason why I'm saying the tribe of Naphtali is they were known for strategic bordering position, like all the borders. They were known for trade routes. They were known for military vulnerability. And so probably she was from this tribe. The Bible did not say that. Neither did the Bible name her or gave her a name, but just knowing about her wisdom and things that happen within this whole story. If you go back to read, more than likely she was a part of the tribe of Naphtali. And so this city was very important. This city, right? This Abel Beth Makkah was a very important city. It was not obscured. It was well known because the Bible tells you it was a hub of counsel and diplomacy. It didn't say that in so many words, but just based on what she said, right? And there is a part in the scripture where she said, right? They used to say, let them ask counsel at Abel. So right away, as you're reading that part of the scripture, you're going to recognize that this city was a hub of counsel and diplomacy, right? They know the law. They know what works. They know how to be diplomatic in dealings of the territory. And so this told us something very, very crucial about who this woman was. So let's get into who she is, right? As I said before, the scripture did not name her, but here is what we can get to the scripture. And this point in time, I really want to share a little bit of the scripture with you to help frame the concept of this woman. So in verse 17, right, she called out to Joab, because remember now Joab and his men are at the wall of the city gate trying to break this thing down, to go in, to annihilate, right, to disseminate the threat towards King David. And they know that Joab was in there. And their goal is to go get Joab at whatever cost, even if it meant lives being lost to get the man who was trying to overthrow King David. And so in verse 17, she called out to Joab, knowing that they were out at the city gate, right? After the men are trying to break the wall down, she said, called out to him. And then she said in verse 17, listen to what the servant has to say. And he responded, I am listening. And so she went on to say in verse 18, long ago, they used to say to get your answer at Abel and that settle it. Again, it shows you the type of people that we're dealing with, the type of city, the type of town we're dealing with, right? We are the peaceful and faithful in Israel, she went on to say, and you are trying to destroy a city that is a mother in Israel. Why do you want to swallow up the Lord's inheritance? Right there, that tells you everything you want to know about that particular city. And then Joab said to her, far be it from me to swallow up or destroy. That's not the case. A man named Sheba from the hill country of Ephraim has lifted up his hand against the king David. Hand over that man and I will withdraw from the city. Boom. Right? Joab told her everything that his intention was. And this was her response. She said, and I think this is in verse 18, she responded and said, his head will be thrown to you from the wall. Wow, wow, wow. What did we just see here? So she was obviously a respected voice because he listened. She was obviously a woman with some kind of a civic authority, right? Because she was the voice of reasoning, speaking to Joab and giving him a resolution for the problem that he has, right? So right away, she's either an elder, she's a matriarch, she's a leader, she's someone in position, she's someone with authority for her to even say to him, his head will be thrown to you from the city wall. That speaks a volume. And back in those days, right, if you think about it, women do not casually shout commands at a military general, right? And so for her to call out to Joab and for Joab to stop and listen, to tell her what his intent was, and for him to listen to her response says something about this wise woman, right? She had standing. She had some level of authority. She had some level of credibility, and she had the influence before the crisis. Do you see what is happening here? This woman is preventing a crisis from happening. I was so excited about this story. Let me keep going, right? So you can tell that over time she had cultivated wisdom, right? She wasn't just a person who was just speaking because she just want to speak or even afraid of what was going to happen to her city, right? You can tell this is not her first rodeo. And you can tell that this was a moment that her wisdom became visible. The general is at the door, ready to knock it down to come in. And because of your question, she started with a question. Because of your question, your responses, the general has paused. The general believes that you can deliver on what you said. All right. So how did she get to this point? Just a little bit of, characteristics about her, because you don't rise in crisis, right? You don't just like rise up in crisis. You reveal who you have already become. You see what I'm saying? You don't just, that is not a thing where you say, all right, oh my God, what do I do now? No, there is wisdom there, right? So, and wisdom is revealed because you have already become that wise person, hence the conversation, right? Now, as I said earlier, Abel was known as a mother city, right? In verse 19, it tells us that. And that term suggests that there was stability, there was fertility, there was influence. Other villages looked up to this village, and that is why she called it a mother in Israel. And so she speaks to one who understands the heritage of this city. And what I love about this is even what she said about, when she spoke to Abel, and when she says, we are the peaceful and faithful in Israel. Why are you trying to destroy a city that's a mother in Israel, right? So that again shows you how powerful she is at this point. Before I take a commercial break, I want to get to this point. What made this moment so crucial, right, is that if Joab destroyed the city, right, innocent families may die. Tribal tensions increase between Judah and the north. Civil war breaks out, and people are going to resent each other even more. So this was not something that she wanted to happen. She is trying to prevent some kind of tribal war here, right? She is trying to prevent a fracture within these communities. So let that sink in for a moment. She wasn't just saving buildings, she was saving lives, and she was preserving unity. That is what this wise woman was doing. Now, I have 3 points that I want to cover, and then we will take a break and come right back to cover those 3 points. I hope you're enjoying this so far. Give us a moment and we will be right back.
Are you searching for a place where your spiritual gifts are celebrated and your purpose comes to life? Then get ready to excel in your gifts and marketplace ministry. Join us each Thursday at 7 p.m. for Ignite Bible Academy, a no-cost exegetical Bible study. Just go to globalimpactleadershipacademy.org/ignite to register. Want to sharpen your skills or add new ones? Then learn more through our covenant partner, Global Impact Leadership Academy, with certification opportunities and Christian degree programs. At I Believe God Ministries, our vision is to make disciples, equip, empower, and employ. You can grab your free gift assessment at IBelieveGodMinistries.com. Lastly, we'd like to invite you to join us for a live worship experience via Zoom each Sunday at 10 a.m. Just go to IBelieveGodMinistries.com/join us.
All right. I'm so excited about that new commercial for I Believe God Ministry. Way to go, Apostle. That was powerful. All right. So we're talking about the wise woman of Abel Beth Maachah, right? And Absalom had died, which is King David's son. And here we have Joab trying to create a revolt to take over the kingship from King David. King David found out about it. He sent his head of his army, his general Joab, and Joab's responsibility was to go find this man, right? Find this man. And so here he was. We are trying to, the goal was to find, I'm trying to remember his name. Let me get to his name. The name. I'm trying to get his name. Sheba. Sheba, forgive me. All right, so we're trying to get Sheba. So here are the 3 speaking points right now. So number 1, wisdom speaks before the walls fall. Wisdom speaks before the walls fall, right? So she called out from the city in verse 16, and she didn't panic. She didn't hide. She did not wait for the wall to collapse. She did not wait for that thing to smash the door or the wall into the city. She was proactive. She called out from the city, right? She stepped into visibility and she positions herself at the wall. So this is a woman who understands her voice carries weight, her wisdom is recognized, and her community trusts her. Her community had to trust her for her to be the one to go out and speak, right? And when we look at this woman, even if we take it back to a modern day, right? Leaders do not hide in crisis. They stand up, they speak out. Silence can be very costly, right? Wisdom has to be vocal to be effective. You can't hide your wisdom. And when you see destruction forming, you should speak. And so this is what we can take to our modern day application, right? Abel Beth Makkah was known as a place of counsel because this woman even said that, right? Let them ask counsel at Abel. So she wasn't random. She knew what her city stood for. And so she wanted to make sure that that was known to even her community. And she was the one who picked up the baton to do this, to be this wise woman, to be the one who spoke. And one of the things we can also take from that is that influence is earned long before the crisis arrives. She was influential, and that's why she was able to do what she did. Number 2, wisdom separates the issue from the innocent, right? She negotiated with intelligence. So instead of arguing emotionally, right? And like, why are you trying to break down the door? Why are you here? She asked a question. And her question was in verse 19, why do you want to swallow up the Lord's inheritance? So she even put the Lord, right? How wise is that? Because now you shift the narrative to not so much about this guy that is trying to revolt against King David. You're now saying to Joab, this is the Lord's inheritance. That was a brilliant phrase because she reframes the attack spiritually and covenantly, right? So instead of being, opposing what Joab was getting ready to do, she reframes the attack and gave it a spiritual and a covenant perspective. She reminded Joab that this isn't just a city, but this city belongs to God, right? But Joab was saying to her, the only person I wanted was Sheba. That's him. I just want that man, Sheba, right? The city would have been collateral damage had he broken down the wall and, bulldozed his way in there. But when she clarified this is the Lord's inheritance, it shifted the narrative. This was not about rebellion so much as it was about preservation. And so those 3 powerful things that she did was so important. And I wanted to point those out. Number 1, she clarified the issue, right? Number 2, she identified the true problem. She realized the problem was Sheba. And number 3, she offered the solution. And the solution she offered was that you're going to get his head. Okay, you're going to get his head. Because Joab said, the only person I don't want to break down your city. I don't want to destroy any of this. I don't want to take your people out. I just want that man. That's who? The man who's trying to revolt against my king. That's who I want. And so when she said his head will be thrown to you over the wall, that was a decisive leadership decision. She didn't question. She didn't think about it. She didn't say, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to see. No, that was decisive. She was ready. She was ready to eliminate the threat, right? And in modern day application, when we look at this, she discerned the root problem. And sometimes that is what we have to do when there are conflicts and things are not right and people are fighting against each other, whether it's in your family, whether it's in your business, whether it's in the church, whether it is in ministry, in whatever you do, right? A leader discern the root problem, and then they will protect the many without enabling the one, right? The goal is to protect the many without enabling the one. That is stewardship. That is stewardship. Point number 3 is wisdom prioritizes covenant over comfort. And what she did was persuaded the people to execute Sheba, because here's the thing. When she said, his head gonna be thrown over the wall, that was a decision she made. right? And when she made that decision, she was making that decision on behalf of her people. On behalf of her people. This was not emotional. This was very strategic. If that man is the problem, the one man was the problem, this woman know that this is a covenant city. This is a protected city. This is God's city. And so was King David. All right. And so if there's that one man that is trying to overthrow the throne and he is the problem, we gonna get him out of here so peace can abide in this city, right? And so she chose preservation over sentiment. She chose covenant over chaos, and she chose community over a fugitive, right? And so this is mature leadership. And I want to say this, sometimes protecting legacy requires hard decisions. And as leaders, we are in positions sometimes, and there are decisions that we're going to make that people are not going to like. There are decisions that we're going to make where we might be the only person standing up for what we know is right and what we believe is true, right? And so she goes to her people with her wise counsel in verse 22, and they execute Sheba and throw his head over the wall. And the siege ends. All right. So the hard truth is she chose the preservation of the city over protecting one man. Tough, but it was necessary. And this is wisdom, right? This is wisdom rooted in stewardship. This woman understood a couple of things. A rebellious voice can cost an entire community. Sometimes in one bad apple spoil a whole bunch, right? Delay could mean destruction, and courage sometimes require swift action, surgical action, definite action. And so when I look at a couple of other women in the Bible to just compare her with, I go back to Abigail, right? Who stopped David from bloodshed. And I also go back and looked at Deborah, who led with authority and discernment in helping, to overthrow that man that wanted to destroy their community as well. But unlike those ladies who were literally named in the Bible, this wise woman of Abel Beth Makkah was not named. That is powerful. So far as we have looked at all these women, silent sisters of service, they don't have a name, but what they did was powerful. Why? Because she doesn't have to have a name. We can insert our names in these stories because she is us. We are her, right? Her legacy is not in her name. The legacy is in the impact. That's what's powerful about these silent sisters of service. And why does that matter today? Let me just give you a couple of things. So influence does not require a title. She did not need a crown. She needed clarity, and she got clarity. And so when we look at her, she is a blueprint for strategic leadership under pressure. This woman was operating in discernment. She was operating in authority. She was operating in calmness. She was operating in spiritual awareness and swift execution. There were no theatrics. There were no spotlight, just results. How do we take those skill sets? How do we take those wisdom, decisiveness? How do we take those wisdom decisions and implement them into our lives today? So here's what I want you to do as a journal prompt today. I want you to ask yourself this question. Am I protecting one person at the expense of the whole? Think about it. Am I protecting one person at the expense of the whole? Wow. As leaders, that is a loaded question. And then I want you to declare today to yourself, I am a woman of discernment. I am a man of discernment, right? I am a person who discern via the Spirit of God. All right, that's it. That's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this. If you've never heard about her before, Go read Second Samuel's 14, and you will be able, Second Samuel's 20, read the whole chapter. You may even want to go to Second Samuel 19 to read more about this woman, but I hope you enjoy it. That's all I have for you today. God bless you. I'll see you next week, same time, same place. Have a great one.
Deborah's courage, Rahab's bold heart, lessons of love, each a crucial part. Together we stand, hand in hand we rise. With faith like a river, we'll chart the skies. We're shining bright, like a beacon of grace, echoes of faith in this timeless space. From Esther to Mary, the strength we embrace, 21st century woman.